Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Founders Grid, sponsored by Gaper.io. I'm Zanera Baskhan, and joining me today is Jeremy Shwartz, the co-founder of RemoteAblePeople. How are you doing today, Jeremy?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Zin. Good to meet you. I hope that you're doing well too on your side of the world.
Oh, I am doing great. Thank you for joining us today. I see you're from South Africa. How's the weather there? I mean, I love Africa, the animals and everything, the nature. But how's the
Yeah,
weather?
it's fantastic. We're not having any kind of the crazy storms that are going on in the US at the moment. So we've got bright summer here at the moment. It's summer till the end of February. So it's beautiful weather here today, and very fortunate to be living in an environment where we're surrounded by nature and lots of sunlight. So I'm feeling pretty happy today and grateful.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Okay. How about you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Sure. So I've been in sales in some way, shape, or form or another my whole life. It started up when I was at school. I was literally the first newspaper boy in my neighborhood, and I would literally start by knocking on doors all around my little village where I lived, getting people to subscribe to the local evening newspaper. That seems like another world now. But I've always enjoyed working with people. So I got into the software sales industry in 1998. So that's 22 years ago now. And I've been very fortunate in my career to have some great mentors and to be able to travel the world, be exposed to lots of different technologies. So I've worked my way up from an account manager all the way up to senior sales vice president in 3 different global companies. And I've had the unique experience of living and working in a number of different countries. And the part that's been the most exciting with all of this is interacting with people of different backgrounds and cultures. And now working remotely, I worked recently for the last 3 years for a large corporate, which we call a FROG. I'm not sure if you've heard that acronym before, an FROG. It stands for a fully remote organization. And obviously with the pandemic and everything that's happened in 2020 and 2021, that's become the new normal. But I've been fortunate enough to be running large teams of remote workers for the last couple of years. And the experience and the insights that I gained from doing that led me to found RemoteAblePeople with my partner in the United States, in California. So it's different iterations. It's all about selling and delivering value, but now in a whole new world. So that's a little about my background. I hope that's useful.
Very interesting. Okay. What has your takeaway been from such an experience like remote work, if any at all?
So there are lots of good takeaways that I'll be happy to share some, what I always call nuggets when I'm talking with my team. So a couple of key takeaways or important points. So let me run through a couple of things that are really important about making a success of remote work, regardless of what one's role is. The first thing that's really important is to establish a very good routine. The challenge that a lot of people have, which I battled with in the beginning as well with remote work, was setting very clear boundaries between what is work and what is home. So what we found works really well is to literally have a demarcated area, whether it's a study or a separate room or whatever it is, that is your workspace. And when you're there, you're at work. And that means not taking your laptop to the kitchen table or sitting having supper while you're working. So by very clearly separating a literal physical separation of work and home is really important. The routine is really important as well because it allows you to be able to build in lots of breaks. So one of the things that I recommend to anybody who works remotely is to be able to structure their day and structure their week in a way that you can not work for longer than about 2.5 hours at a time. Break that with, even if it's just 10 minutes of walking outside or doing something different, interacting with your family, or if like me, you've got lots of dogs, I can go and play in the garden with the dogs for a few minutes, but literally break that sitting at a laptop thing so you don't end up doing it for 5, 6, 7 hours at a time where you get really stale. And something else that we've learned that works really powerfully is we embrace this concept of deep work. I'm not sure, have you come across the concept of deep work, Zin? Or shall I talk about that a bit?
Sure, talk about it, please. I would like to know.
Sure. So the concept of deep work is really setting some scheduled blocked time in your calendar. I do it 2 or 3 times a week. And you literally switch off every single distraction. So you literally switch off email, make sure that your phone is off. You are literally just working with your thoughts, and you are focusing on solving problems. So deep work means literally doing it for an hour, hour and a half, where you are focusing on producing some content or solving a problem or whatever it is, but you're absolutely focused on that thing. If you're like me, I'm very easily distracted. So my biggest challenge when I'm trying to work is if an email comes in or somebody sends me a WhatsApp or there's some sort of a distraction, I tend to very easily lose focus on what I'm doing and solve the one thing and then keep coming back and backwards and forwards. But if you discipline yourself from a deep work perspective, you can dive right in and remove all distractions to produce a piece of work that is important. So I found that those couple of tips have worked really well. If we just go through them again, it's having a good routine, making sure that you've got a very clear demarcation between when you're working and when you're not working, and then also making sure that you can block time in your week for deep work where you can think and not be distracted. So those are just a couple of little tips that I found to be really useful when it comes to surviving and hopefully thriving in a remote world. I trust that that's useful or interesting for some of your listeners.
No, no, no. It's actually very helpful. I'm definitely gonna give deep work a try. Like I really needed that. Thank you. Okay, since you
Yeah.
shared what needs to be done differently to make remote work more effective, what do you think is the future of remote employment?
Well, I think there are a couple of big factors at play at the moment. So I think one of the things that's been really interesting about living through the pandemic, which we're all doing at the moment in some way, shape, or form, is that I think we can all agree that we all crave human contact or being part of a community, whether it's small or large, and feeling connected to other humans. So my feeling is that the future of remote work is not going to be so much work from home as work from anywhere. It's not necessarily going to be linked or limited to just working from someone's house, but literally working from anywhere. And I do think that the model that we're going to see evolving is very much a hybrid model. So I know that there are a lot of big companies like Spotify and Google and Amazon, Zillow, that have basically furloughed their workforces to be able to work remotely for the foreseeable future. But I think what's going to happen, Zun, as we go forward is I think that's going to end up being more of a blended approach. I think we're going to see more and more organizations having an approach where there'll be a couple of days a week where people will come together in a work environment, hopefully when we've all been inoculated or we've got herd immunity from COVID. But I don't think that human beings are engineered to be separate from others. So I think we all crave that connectivity. And I think that in some way, shape, or form, the working remotely and being part of an organization and maybe coming into an office once or twice a week, I think is the future. I'm not sure what your thoughts are or how you're working at Gaper. Is that a similar model?
Gaper, we actually we were remote even before COVID-19 showed up. So we have
Right,
started as a remote company. Like we have been remote since day one.
right.
Yeah, we have regular meetings, casual meetings. We have them every day, and that helps us connect, and that helps us, to keep check on what's happening and everything. So yeah,
So Gaper is a frog, a fully remote organization.
exactly. Gaper is a frog.
You could tell that you could tell your colleagues at your next meeting, guys. Gaper is a frog.
Gaper is a frog. Okay, so what's the story behind your setup, and what has the journey been like? Any hurdles, ups and downs? Like I'm sure there must have been some ups and downs.
Of course, and I think just as a segue into that subject, one of the things that's really important when it comes to hiring, when we hire people into our organization, and what's important to be able to succeed as an entrepreneur or in a startup scenario. So a couple of things that I always look for when I'm recruiting people, and some of the things that we pride ourselves on as entrepreneurs is, first of all, a big quality to look for is grit. is literally the ability to stick, the ability to be tough, to be able to get through tough times. And I think that with the world that we live in at the moment, where there is so much instant gratification and there's so much, you can literally go onto America's Got Talent and become a star overnight. There's a lot of expectation that success happens very quickly. You've just got to be in the right place and the right time. And my experience is that success is usually a journey with lots and lots and lots and lots of little things that one does correctly, where one builds up discipline and strength and backbone and courage and tenacity and pushing through. So in our journey opening RemoteAblePeople, we thought there would be a very strong pull from the marketplace very early on, because we were offering a service that most companies would need with regards to how do you scale and set up and build remote processes and still being able to deliver great SLAs and customer experiences to your marketplace. And we found that a lot of people initially were quite skeptical. The feedback that we got a lot of the time was, we think we can figure this out ourselves. I'm sure it's not that difficult. Everybody's in the same boat, and we don't think we need outside help. And so one of the things that we had to learn the hard way was to scale down our initial ambitions around the work that we would be doing. So instead of trying to take on a huge big project and transforming a huge corporate with how to build and scale a remote organization, we focused in on niche areas in a business where we could add value. So it's almost like a stealth approach, so we became very niche focused on particular areas of a business. So typically we play in the sales area and in finance. And what we found to be a successful model is to go in and do a small good job, get credibility, get support, deliver well, almost like a pilot. And from there, we have the credibility and the sponsorship to be able to expand into the larger organization. So I think, to answer your question, we're only a year and a bit into our journey. We're now starting to get some really good traction, which is very exciting. But it's not just an overnight thing that happens right away because you think that you've got a solution to a problem. You need to stick at it and keep on doing the right things daily. And I think that's the real lesson that I've learned as an entrepreneur, is to not always be attached to outcome, but be focused on doing great work and building great habits on a daily basis. Because if you're only waiting for the big deals to be signed, it can be quite soul destroying. If you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Okay. How did you incorporate the idea of remote in your mode of working? Was it COVID, or was it just like, one day you thought, I need like remote work, I need to go remote?
Well, interestingly, I got into remote work, I guess, similar to you, before the pandemic. So 3.5 years ago now, I was fortunate enough to work for a large global company, which is completely remote. And I saw that as a very interesting model, because you have a situation where you're straddling multiple time zones. There's enormous diversity in the staff. You've got literally, I've got teams that are literally across the entire globe, from Venezuela to Canada to Romania to Serbia, South Africa, China. And so when I was first presented with the opportunity for a leadership role in this remote organization, I was very excited about the opportunity to be exposed to multiple cultures and to be able to build something that scales across the whole world. So it was very much a going back to school for me in the first few months. It was a very steep learning curve, because it's a very specific set of skills and experience that you need to have to be able to run a remote organization. It doesn't just mean everybody sitting on Zoom for hours every day. There's a lot more to it than that. And I found that I really enjoyed it. And I suppose one of the things that drives all entrepreneurs is when you get to a stage where you think, hey, I'm building somebody else's company. Wouldn't it be great if I could take some of the learnings and be able to offer something unique in the market to help people and to be able to build something myself? So that was kind of my journey with regards to getting to founding RemoteAblePeople. Very exciting journey indeed.
Many companies, since the pandemic started, they have been forced to go remote, even educational institutions. In a situation such as this, what are the major roadblocks and challenges?
Well, interestingly, one of the first things that you need to have a look at, and this is where a lot of folks originally go wrong, is they talk about productivity, but very much from a personal point of view. So you often hear people talking about, how do I get my people to be more productive? And the key to productivity in a remote organization is actually about designing great processes. It's less about managing. It's about the blocker, right? About, yeah, okay.
Okay, so Jeremy, in the current situation, like since the pandemic started, many companies have been forced to go remote, even educational institutions. And in a situation such as this, what are the major roadblocks and challenges?
I think there's two major roadblocks that come to mind. So the first one is that a lot of people mistakenly focus on micromanaging people with regards to improving productivity. So often you hear the mantra, how do I get my people to be more productive? Do I need to get them to check in every single day? Do I need to take screenshots of what they're doing? How do I make sure that the work is getting done? I want to make sure people are being productive all the time. And we found that to be not the best place to start. With a remote organization, whether it's a corporate or an educational institution, what you want to do is you want to focus on building great processes. That is how you maintain and scale productivity during the pandemic and beyond. So the ability to be able to understand very clearly what work is being done for every job description, to be able to write that down, to map it, to be able to drive it and run great processes is how you drive and maintain productivity. So that's the big one, I would think, in terms of where to focus and where to start. The second big one where a lot of organizations go wrong with regards to a blocker working in the pandemic is expecting their staff to be working on Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever it is, collaborating on video chats a lot of the time. And this is not a great practice for a number of reasons. First of all, it's really expensive to have big meetings, right? So if you've got 10 or 20 or 30 people sitting in a meeting, that's an enormous cost to the company, where often you'll find that the bulk of the people are not actually contributing, but they're just sort of sitting there listening. So lots and lots of Zoom meetings is not the answer. What we found to be enormously effective in running a global organization where people are working remotely is to be able to work what we call in an asynchronous mode. An asynchronous mode means that you collaborate on documents and presentations and content and work. For instance, on Google Docs is one example of that, where as a leader or as a manager, I can literally put my thoughts down, share the document with the team, and then regardless of where people are in the world and what time zone they're in, they can come into the document, do their work, make their edits or changes or comments or whatever it is, and we can build out great decisions and content together in a collaborative way. It doesn't require that everybody's always got to be aligned in meetings all the time. So my big piece of advice for anybody who's running a global team or with there are lots of remote workers is try and cut down on Zoom meetings. What you want to do is you want to get people into the mode of collaborating asynchronously on documents and presentations. And that is enormously efficient because it means that you're not having people having to sometimes dial in late at night or early in the morning to be able to align. And also it means that when somebody's collaborating on a document, they're working, they're actually adding value. They're not just sitting in a meeting nodding their heads. So those are the two big points I would flag for people faced with the pandemic and working efficiently in a remote world. Does that make sense, what I've said?
It does, it totally does. Moving towards the last question. There are companies like Gaper that help develop, build, and scale products, especially for startups. How important do you think such setups are in the startup world and for founders looking to quickly hire smart?
I think it's super important. So I think one of the things that's been really interesting about the pandemic and the way that we adapt, and the thing about people Zun, is that people are amazingly adaptable. You know, it's amazing if you look through history how human beings adapt to situations. And so for me, as we move into this new age, the knowledge age, I think if we're in a situation now where the playing field has been leveled considerably, so it doesn't matter if you've been around for 100 years and you've got 10,000 employees, if you've got a great value proposition and a great platform, and you're able to offer a unique service that you can make available to the whole world on a platform, then you can compete with anybody. And I think that the entrepreneurial spirit with companies like Gaper is really driving a lot of the change, because we're bringing new thinking, young creative ideas into a traditional business world. And I couldn't be more excited about it.
Thank you for joining us today, Jeremy. It was a pleasure talking to you. Seriously, it was a pleasure. I wish we could have talked more, but our marketing team suggests we keep it short. Since Corona showed up, everyone has been producing a lot of content, and keeping it short is the way these days, I guess. But
Well, Zun, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. I've loved being here, and I'd love to talk to you again at some stage in the future. But thank you very much for having me today and let me share my thoughts. And it's good to meet you. So thanks very much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Jeremy. Have a great week.
Take care.
Bye.